When it comes to horror, mystery, suspense, and goth, there's no one more influential than Edgar Allan Poe. Often misunderstood, this literary icon was as much an enigma as the characters in his writings. We're going to take a look into some of his poems and short stories, as well as the events in his extraordinary life, and uncover some of the mystery that is Edgar Allan Poe. The Raven is by far Poe's most popular literary work. First published in January of 1845, The Raven instantly made Poe a household name, drawing from the influences of Barnaby Rudge from Charles Dickens, which included a talking raven, and the complicated rhythm of Elizabeth Barrett Browning's poem, Lady Geraldine's Courtship. The Raven is now ingrained into our cultural mythos, showing its influences all the way from the 1935 film The Raven, starring Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, to The Simpsons and their Treehouse of Horror segment, to our film, Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven in 2015. And who could forget the work of Vincent Price and Roger Corman and their contributions to Poe's notoriety? There's even a football team named after the poem, the Baltimore Ravens. Unfortunately for Poe, he was only paid $9 for the initial publishing and saw little financial return. The only thing it really bought him was notoriety. It earned him the nickname Raven and got him lots of speaking gigs in public and private events. There were even parodies of the poem. The Turkey, the Raven, and the Owl were published within a generation after Poe's death. But what is the actual story? What makes this poem so memorable and influential? Well, it begins with a lonely guy reading books on a dark December night, lamenting over his lost love, Lenore. When out of nowhere, he hears someone knocking at the door to his room. He gets up and looks only to find no one there. He hears the knock again, at a window this time, and when he checks it out, a raven flies into the room. Of course it's a raven, so it must mean something, right? He asks the bird a series of questions, and the only response he gets is, "Nevermore." In Western traditions, ravens have always been considered birds of ill omen and death, probably because they tend to show up when things die, and eat them. The bird lands on a bust of Pallas, also known as Pallas Athena, the goddess of wisdom. This represents wisdom and rationality. The raven perching there could be seen as the bird claiming the narrator's sanity. So naturally, our narrator deduces that the raven must be a supernatural sign from his lost love. After more interrogation, the bird keeps giving him the same answer, nevermore. It would have been maddening to someone already in a desperate state of depression. It gets so intense that he starts to think that the bird is a demon, maybe even the devil himself sent to torment him. It also gives the reader the notion that maybe this is all in his head. Maybe his depression has consumed him.
Is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore.
Quoth the Raven, nevermore.
The narrator asks the raven, "Is there balm in Gilead?" This is a reference to the Bible, in particular Jeremiah chapter 8. Israel was exiled under Babylonian rule. The nation itself was hurt and in disarray. Jeremiah asks God if there is a balm in Gilead or healing in this land. To turn things back to the raven, the narrator asks the bird if there is healing for his pain in the future, figuratively speaking, balm in Gilead, to which the bird replies, "Nevermore."
Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's plutonium shore.
Quoth the Raven, nevermore.
Poe makes reference to the night's Plutonian shore. Pluto was the Roman counterpart to Hades, the god of the underworld. The narrator attempts to cast the raven back to the depths of hell from which he came. What was the bird's response? You guessed it, nevermore. The bird is never leaving. It will forever be with him to the end of time. The shadow of his loss of Lenore will haunt him to the end of his days. Needless to say, it doesn't end well. The poem itself is written in the rarely used trochaic octameter, which has alternating stressed syllables in chunks of 8. To get technical, the rhyme scheme is ABCBBB or AABCCCBBB. Listen how it sounds in the beginning of the poem.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door.
'Tis some visitor tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more.
Now take that same rhythm and listen how it sounds at the end when the emotions are high.
Be that word our sign of parting, bird our fiend!
I shrieked up, starting.
Get thee back into the tempest in the night's plutonium shore! Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from out my door!
Quoth the raven, nevermore.
He also used alliteration, which is the repetition of consonant sounds, like this.
Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortals ever dared to dream before.
Notice how the D sound is repeated and how it just seems to add something rhythmic to the reading. Use it too much and it can be mechanical, but playing it just right can be mesmerizing. And what better way to do that than a narrative poem that brings to light the horrors of depression and loss? Poe himself was no stranger to loss, as many of the women in his life had died young. His mother, adopted mother, and wife all passed early in life. The Raven certainly was influenced by those tragic events, as was much of Poe's writing. So, if you want something dark and broody and with the most recognizable and memorable rhythm you've ever heard, you should give The Raven a read. Be sure to visit poemovies.com to shop in our store and to use our free lesson plans. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to get updates on new content.